Be only 20, 30 minutes here, I think. So about basic Python syntax, I think, as I said, we've already spoken a little bit about this. We spoke about it when we were focusing on flowcharts and when we were focusing on our pseudocode, because the flowcharts and the pseudocodes were the algorithms which we then translated into Python, and Python kind of looks a lot like the pseudocode that we were doing. Anyway, so you should recognize something like this, I hope. Now, when you actually write Python code, it won't look kind of like this. If it's red, you know, in Python code, if it's red, if we're using idle, red would mean that it's a comment. Red here means that it's, I think just to highlight, obviously it's not a comment. The while won't work without the while, but actually the colon there is highlighted as well. I'm sorry, I can't. Yeah, there we go. The colon there is highlighted as well. The colon is really quite important. So if you look at the construction of how this works with the while construct, the while programming construct, how it works is we say while, then we have a condition. Now notice in this condition, it's got the two brackets. The brackets would be required if this was pseudocode. Actually, in Python code, the brackets are optional. So you don't have to put the brackets. You do need to put the condition, and you do need to put the colon. It won't work without the colon. Okay, so very, very important. Now, the other thing that's very important is the indenting. Now, that's different than other programming languages. In Python, if you get the indenting wrong, the program won't work. What this indenting means is everything that's indented one indent from the colon, from the line that has the colon, that will be part of that programming structure. So in this case, what it means is that the while statement, if the condition is true, then everything that's indented just once from there will be executed if that condition is true. So the first instruction, the second instruction will be executed if that condition is true. Then what will happen is when we get down to the bottom of the while statement, what always happens is the control of the statement goes back to the condition. And you'll see that when we do a trace. Okay, so we'll do a trace of that later on today. Now you see the line of code which is outside the condition, outside the while structure. That only happens when we've finished doing the loop. And so we will stay doing the loop until this condition is true. So there should be something happening in one of these instructions that changes a variable on which the condition rests. So we're going to have one of these instructions will change the variable, and then eventually the condition will become false. When the condition becomes false, then we stop the loop. That's when we do the next step, the next instruction outside the loop. We only go outside the loop when the condition becomes false. I hope this makes sense. I know I'm sort of multiplying words there, but I just wanted to make sure that you understood it. Is it making sense? I hope. All right, so you have seen this type of thing before, which is a flow chart, and we see that we've got a condition down here. And so this condition, this is a negative condition. How this condition would work is it would say, while current sale is not equal to 0. And so as long as that equal to 0 thing is not true, then it's going to keep doing this stuff, right? As soon as that equal to 0 becomes true, then we go out here. So the actual condition is what is a not condition. All right. So I know it sounds strange, but that's the way Boolean works. It's true as long as the condition is false. Does that make sense? And so we're going to say while not equal to 0, that condition will be true as long as it's not equal to 0, right? And then, so that's what we mean by the no there, not equal to 0. We'll keep on doing this stuff. Eventually, the person will, because what's happening with the current sale is an input that's coming from the user. The user is asked, what's the current sale number? They type in a number. When they're finished, they'll type in the number 0, and then you get out of the loop. So that's called a Sentinel loop. A Sentinel loop is some input from the user, usually, is going to stop the loop. Okay, so when it becomes a 0 entry, we stop the loop. I don't know why this page is there, because it doesn't have any loop in it, except to say that we're using this input, which then shows up in this. Here's the loop. So what we notice about this Sentinel loop, this particular Sentinel loop, is that we have an input before we, ladies, is it, excuse me, Sawa, here, is everything okay? Can I help you guys with anything? Huh? What I want you to notice here is that we're getting an input from the user, and then we're testing to see if that input meets our requirement. If it does, then we go into the loop and we stay in the loop, and we keep testing it by keep entering this value here. I wouldn't have set it up quite like this, but this is how it works, yeah. So I hope you can see that we're getting the value here, we test it, and then we test it again. As long as that value is true, and how it will be true is if the value, in this case, current sale, is not equal to 0. As long as that's true, that it's not equal to 0, we'll stay in that loop. As soon as it becomes equal to 0, then it's not true anymore. This statement's not true anymore. And then we would get out of the loop and we'd go to the next one. All right, so that's one type of loop. Now, I hope you can see on this slide, we've got a different kind of loop. The previous one was a Sentinel loop. Sentinel loop, we use it when we don't know how many times we're going to do the loop. We allow the loop to be controlled by the user input. When the user wants to stop the loop, they type something like 0, okay? Now, in this case, we know before we start the loop how many times we're going to do it. And so we use a counter. And so, for example, we'd say, all right, well, I'm going to do this 10 times. And so here we start with our counter equal to 0. We do something, and then we add 1 to the counter. When the count, and as long as the counter is not equal, is less than 10, we're just going to keep doing that. But eventually the counter will become equal to 10, and then we'll get out of the loop. That's a counted loop. Two different types of loops, right? Sentinel loop, we do it when we use a Sentinel loop when we don't know how many times we're going to do it. Counted loop when we know how many times we're going to do it. So this case, we know how many times we're going to do it. We set the counter to 0. Last thing we do inside this loop is we update the counter, and that will give us our loop. Now, the next one, we have done something like this before. The average is like, everybody should do this as a program. How does an average work? You get a total, and it's a total made up of a bunch of values. You count every time you add one value to the total, you add to the count. And then the average is just going to be the total divided by the count. So it always works that way. And so the way that we would write a program like this is we'd have a while loop. Before the while loop, we'll set the count to 0. We'll set the total to 0. Inside the while loop, we update the count and we update the total. And so that's what you see happening here. This is a nice, I mean, averages are almost always done this way, right? We set the counter to 0. We set the sum to 0. As long as the counter is less than 10, we get another number. We add it to the total. We update the counter. And we just keep doing that. When we get to 10, we're going to stop. And then we take the total, divide it by the counter, which should be 10, right? And then that will be our average. And because our average is calculated by dividing by one number by another, the average will always be a float value in Python. Does this make sense? Yeah, I hope. All right, so a nested loop. The idea of a nested loop is you have one loop running inside another loop. And the nested one, so do you see that we've got an outer loop here and we've got an inner loop. What's going to happen is the outer loop is going to run how many times? 5, right? And the inner loop is going to run 3 times, except it's going to run 3 times and then 5 times. It's going to, the inner loop is actually going to run 3 times 5 times. The inner loop is going to run 15 times. But every time we go through the outer loop, we're going to go through the inner loop 3 times. So that's why the inner loop goes 15 times, right? The outer loop goes 5 times, but every time we go through the outer loop, we have to stop and do the inner loop 3 times, then go back and, all right. So this is kind of neat. We'll do that as a Python program. Well, why don't we do it right now as a Python program? Okay, let's show it. So let's take that. I know I've got idle running here. There it is. I'm going to put this into an idle loop. I'll call this a nested loop program. You could do something like this too if you wanted. I mean, so let's just call this nested loops. And I'm going to just copy that code right in there. And it looks like it's indented, so it'll work. But to make it so that we know what's happening, I'm going to put some line numbers on it. So you know that what I'm doing when I do the hash and get the red thing, that is going to, sorry, that's line 3. That is just a comment. So that's not going to be processed by the computer program. So this is line 5, right? What I should do is I should actually, don't make this 4. I'm going to put another line in here where I'm going to put a print statement. And what I'm going to print here is I'm going to print what is the value of J. So I'm going to print the value of J there. We can see the value of J. Also, I'm going to print what line number we're on so that you can see where I am. Where did this happen? This is happening at line 4. I hope you can see why I put 4 there, because that is 4, right? And then this is going to be line 6. So at line 6, yeah, maybe it's worth watching just to see what happens here. All right, what's going to happen? It's going to print I, and then it's going to print a star. Oh, that could be interesting. Let's just see what happens. So maybe here I'm going to print I and J, right? After this, I'm going to print I and J. Yeah, let's see. So this would be line 7, and this would be line 8. So, and so let's print I. What is I? And then we're going to print J. I think that'll do it, right? So that could be fun. What's this? That's I. We're incrementing I. So this is line 9. I don't need to print that again. I could, I suppose. Yeah, why not? Let's do this print, and this will be line 10. We'll see what happens when we get to line 10. So at line 10, let's go ahead and run it. I just put those print statements in so you can see the nested loop. So what we should see is we should see the inner loop is happening a lot more times than the outer loop. So let's see if that's right. So so I got an error there because I did a SR instead of a STR. Yeah, okay. Try again. All right, so many times. All right, so what you see happening here, right? Line 4 is being printed. Oh yeah, because we've got so many of these. 1 times 1, 1 times 2, 1 times 3, 1 times 4. That's cool. You know what? I'm just gonna. That's kind of. So what we're printing is I was 1, then it's and J was 1, then I. Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna comment that out. Let's run it again so we can see. Right. So what you can see here, I hope. So line 4, that's the first time we print. How many times is line 4 printed? Just look at that. Line 4 is printed here once. twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Line 4 is printed 5 times. Does that sound right? Why is line 4 printed 5 times? Because it's in the outer loop, right? That's in the outer loop. The outer loop, everything happens 5 times. Now look at line, this one, line 8. Line 8 is printed 3 times here. J was 1, then it was 1, 2, 3, then it was 4. Yeah, all right. Yeah, it becomes 4 here when we add 1 to it. Then it has to stop being less than 3. Yeah, I'm gonna comment that out too. Is it just it's easier without them? Let's follow. So this is easier to watch, I think. So what we see happening here, line 4, as I said, happens 5 times. Why? Because it's in the outer loop. But look at what's happening with line 8, which is inside the inner loop. 1, 2, 3 times, 1, 2, 3 times, right? 1, 2, 3 times, 1, 2, 3 times. How many times is line 8 run? It's actually run 15 times, 3 times 5, right? And so that's the inner loop. So I like to think of it as like the inner loop is like a little wheel that's spinning on a big wheel. The little wheel goes a lot of times, right? And the big wheel goes fewer times. The outer loop is the big wheel. The big wheel here, we went 5 times. The inner loop went 5 times, 3 times. Hope that makes sense. 15 times. Can you see? Inside the loop of the little loop, line 8 was printed 15 times. Okay? All right, so anyways, that was fun. All right, so we do have, that was our lecture. Our lecture was short. So we've got, I think we've got here in the content, we've got a tutorial. We can probably do a little bit of that tutorial now. I'm going to download the Word document. And you probably might want to download the, did I put that up there? Yeah, I put it in the course home. You probably would like to download this tracing paper because it would, we can, because the tutorial has a trace that we have to do. Let's just try that. I think we'll just do the tutorial. I think we got enough time to do that. The lecture only took 24 minutes. So I think we can do that. What have I got open? I got the Python loops tutorial. Let's open up the Word document of the other thing, which there it is, the tracing paper. Go away. There we go. So I got those two. Let's do it. All right. So how we've done this in the past is we put a little bit of a heading on there. So I'll insert a line above it and we'll merge that. And this is, yeah, I don't know. Oh, the other thing is it looks better if we center it. So I'm just going to center all of that. Right. So the first one, what is this? It just says tracing 1. I'm just going to, I don't know, tracing 1. 1, and that's tutorial 5. Okay, so I'm just going to go through here. You guys with me? What I'm going to do? I'm going to go through one line at a time. I'm going to see what's happening with each of these variables. So at line 1, we've got variable V. Variable V. And at line 1, variable V has a value of 23. That's the only thing that happens at line 1, right? Line 1, we created a variable V, we put a value of 2 in it. Line 2, 23. Line 2, anything happened to V in line 2? No, but V stays the same. But we got a new variable, which is X, and X takes the value of 0. And so then we have to go to line 3. Now line 3 is one of these things here. It's a condition, and the condition is while V is less than 21, greater than 21, sorry. Well, V is bigger than 21. So that's either going to be true. This is a condition in the while loop. And so a condition can be true or false, right? So that's how I'm going to treat this. In line 3, nothing happens to change the value of V or X. Okay, X and V stays the same. So I'm just going to keep them the same. Can you see this, by the way? Is it too small? I can make it a bit bigger, I suppose. Is that better? I hope you can see that. Yeah, so nothing happens here to change that. But what we can do is we can say, is this true or false? Is V bigger than 21? Yes, it is. That's true. So I'm just going to put true there. And if it's true, how the condition works. Now remember how the while statement works. If the condition is true, we do the stuff inside the while. If the condition's not true, we don't do the stuff inside the while. So the condition's true, so we're going to do the stuff inside the while. Okay? So what's going to happen is we will go to line 4. On line 4, V changes its value. It becomes whatever it was before minus 1. So what it was before is 23. Minus 1 is going to be 22. Nothing happens to X. Then we're going to go to line 5. What happens in line 5? Well, nothing happens to V in line 5. V changes the value of X. It doesn't change the, line 5 changes the value of X. It doesn't change the value of V. So V is going to stay at 22, but X is going to have 4 added to it. 0 plus 4 is 4, and that's it. All right, now, what do we do now? We have done one loop. We always go back and check the condition to see if it's true, if we should stay in the loop. So that would mean we would have to go to line 3. So here we're going to go back to line 3 to check the condition again. At line 3, we check the condition. So these two things don't change at line 3, but we get to check the condition again. Is V bigger than 21? Well, V's 22, so that's still true. And so because it's still true, that means we get to go to line 4 again. And so at line 4, what happens? V gets to be less by 1. Nothing happens to X. But at line 4, something happens to X. X gets increased in value by 8. But at line 5, sorry. Hello. So nothing happens to V there, but this needs to become 8. Right. Okay. So now what do we do? We've gone here. We need to go back to line 3. We need to go back to line 3. So we can do that there. When we get back to line 3, these things don't change, but we have to check the value again. So now we're going to check this. Is V bigger than 21? 21. Is 21 bigger than 21? No, so that's a false. Maybe I'll put it in this side. Okay, that's a false. So because it's a false, things are different now. They're different than what we've been doing in all the lines before, right? We got to here, we checked this, and now it's false. So are we going to do line 4? No. Are we going to do line 5? No. We skipped 4 and 5 because we only do those if the condition was true. That's the way the while works. Because the condition is no longer true, we have to skip down to line 6. And so see that? We're skipping all the way from 3 to 6 because the condition in the while statement is false. Can't do the while. We just go to line 6, and all line 6 is print. So that doesn't change the value of any of the variables, but it does give us an output. And the output is, yeah, it's going to be like this, 8. It's going to be like that, 8. Okay, is that true? Let's see. I'm going to copy all of this, and I'm going to put it into idle editor, and we're going to call that, I don't know, V and X, right? I'm gonna paste that in there. Now, when I copy and paste that, you got to get rid of all those numbers. I'm just backspacing. When I backspace these, my tabs are not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to backspace up to the previous line and hit enter. Do the same with this. Backspace up to the previous line, hit enter. Do the same here. This one is outside the loop. So now we've got it the same. What we should do is see what happens. What should happen? If it's correct, it should print what? It should print what? X, which is 8. Fatma's correct. But let's see if our program is correct. Now, I'm going to run it again so we can see it. It should print 8. There you go, folks. So that we were doing the program correctly with our trace, because our trace, we said that it should give an 8, and there it is, it did give an 8, just like in our trace, right? Sweet. I mean, if you followed that, you were right? So we have proven that our trace is correct by using the Python code to check it. All right, let's go and look at the next one. So the next one is going to be called mystery. I'm going to give a new line here. Sorry, I highlighted that. Let's merge those cells. And that's going to be mystery. So we get to start all over again. First line, we got a variable called mystery. And the variable called mystery has a value of 4. Everybody with me? Got a variable called mystery, the value is 4. The next line, we're working on the tutorial, those folks that came a little late. We got a variable called other. Now, nothing in this line, nothing happens to other. I mean, nothing happens to mystery, right? Mystery is still there, and it's still got a value of 4, correct. All right, but we do need to create another variable, which we're going to call other. And it takes a value of 32. Next one. Okay, so now we got a condition here. The condition is mystery is less than 22. So let's put the condition here, let's say. It's in line 3. I could put it here, I suppose. Yeah, why not? Okay, so well, what is it? Mystery is less than 20. Okay, so the thing is, I'm going to need 2 lines for 3 to do this. Is that true? These values didn't change. Is it true? Is mystery less than 20? Yeah, so I'm going to put true here. Sorry for making a lot of things here, but just so that you can see, all right, so we're checking the condition there. I'm going to make the while a lowercase because I don't really use uppercase while. All right, so this is true. So that means that we do the stuff in the loop. As long as the condition for the loop is true, we have to do the stuff for the loop. So we do the stuff for the loop, which is go to lines 4 and 5. We're going to go to both lines 4 and 5. We know we're going to go to both of them because they're both inside the loop. So let's go and do them. In line 4, we do a print. Okay, so these values don't change in line 4, but what we do get is we get an output, which is mystery plus a space, a comma and a space, and then other. Well, mystery is 4, a comma and a space. I'll put this in a quote. 4, a comma and a space, and then other is 32. So it's going to look like that. That's what's going to be printed, because we're going to check this. We're going to run the Python code and see if it's true. So that's going to work. I think that what we've done is we've just done line 4. Line 5, what happens at line 5 is mystery changes its value. So before mystery was 4, Here it says mystery has to change its value to be whatever it was before multiplied by 2. So what am I going to put here? 4 times 2. It's going to be 8. And the other is not going to change. All right, so what do we do after line 5? We're here. We have to go back to line 3, right? We have to go back to line 3. Why do we have to go back to line 3? Because we're in the loop. We have to go and check that. These values don't change, but this true might change, right? Is mystery less than 20? Yeah, it's still less than 20, right? So I'm going to put another true here because 8 is less than 20. So that means that we're going to do lines 4 and 5 again. So line 4 was just, we don't change these variables, but we print something. What are we going to print in line 4? Last time we printed 4, 20, 32. What are we going to print this time? 8, 32. Very good. So we got a couple of prints. Line 5, what happens is we change the value of mystery, right? You see that? Mystery takes the value of whatever it was before, 8 multiplied by 2, which is and the other one doesn't change, right? Okay, so what do we do after line 5? Line 5's here. We're at the end of the loop. So we have to go back to line 3. Very good. We're going to go back to line 3 and we're going to test those conditions. When we're in line 3, we don't change the values of anything, but we test the condition. Is 16, so the condition is mystery less than 20. Mystery is 16. Is that less than 20? Yes, that's fine. So I'm going to put true. So that means we have to do lines 4 and 5 again. So what happens at line 4 is just a print. So what's going to be printed this time? I think I heard somebody say 16, 32. Good. And then at line 5, mystery becomes mystery multiplied by 2. 16 multiplied by 2. 32. So now we got 32 and 32. Oh, that's interesting. But now, and we won't do the upgrade. Now, when we go to back to line 3, right? Go back to line 3, and what's going to happen is it's going to be false. So because it's false, we can't do lines 4 and 5. So what are we going to do? Going to go to line 6. Yes, because it's false, we have to go to the one afterwards. That's line 6. And nothing happens to mystery there, but other takes a value of whatever it was before divided by 2, which is 16. But it's going to be, because it's divided in Python, that means it's going to become a float. When you divide a number, the result is a float. And now we get to print it. So the last thing we do is print it. These values don't change. And so that's going to be, let's see if it works. Maybe 16, 32, not 15. 16.0, right? 32, comma, space 16.0. Now I could be wrong in my math, but I think that's right. So we're going to take this and we're going to try it, and we'll call it mystery. New program called mystery. Going to get rid of all of those numbers because it won't work with the numbers, quite frankly. And when I get to these, remember, I take it to the next line. Then I go down the line by hitting enter. That way it gets the indents exactly right. Now the other was after the while statement. Let's just make sure that's the same as what we've got in our. So is that right? mystery 4, yeah. So just make sure there's only 2 things in the while statement. So that's fine. Let's run that. And mystery. Oh. Mystery. And so let's just check that. I think that's right. So is our trace correct? Over here is our so there's the mystery. Beside us is our trace. And there's our output. Our output is on 432, 832, 1632. Yeah, there we go. 432, 832, 1632, and 3216.0. Awesome. And the code is the same as the thing. So, okay. Fun? How you going? Are you too tired? Can you do a couple programs with me? Sorry? Leave it till Tuesday? All right. I can feel that people are a little bit tired. All right. So there's 2 programs to do there. I'll continue with you on Tuesday. You don't have to hand in the tutorial now. You can hand it in there because we didn't finish it. All right. I don't want to make you work when you're too tired. You already listened to me talking for 40 minutes. That must be hard, right? I don't mind talking. I can go for another hour, but okay. You want to finish this next time? Next time we'll do this and the assignment. Easy peasy. Okay. Any questions? Wasn't that fun? All right. Okay. Oh, by the way, folks, on these problems that I'm not going to do now because you said you're tired, I think we've done all these before. So have a look back there and, and we can do them in like 10 minutes. But you said you're too tired, so I'm not going to do them. Unless you want to come back after 10 minutes. Want to go for a walk and come back? Sorry? Is that a no? No one answered. I'm going to stop the share now. What we got out there? We got. Okay, folks. Yeah, we'll do it on Tuesday.